Yo, what's going on, Dragon Ballers? Welcome back to another video. We're here on Bandai's official Dragon Ball Super card game website, and they have an article from set 14 showing us their updated Gogeta Xeno deck, including the new SS4 Gogeta Thwarting the Dark Empire. This is a card that doesn't really see a lot of play in Gogeta Xeno, so we're going to kind of see where Bandai's head is at here. I was going to go over the Finn cards in today's video, but believe it or not, Facebook, one of the biggest websites in the world, is down for the day. I don't know when it's coming back up, and that actually hurts me for making videos, believe it or not, because I pull the images from the Dragon Ball Super Facebook posts. So hopefully I'll be able to bring you guys that video tomorrow, but today we are going to go over this and see just where the designers' heads are at in comparison to the people who actually play the game, us the players. So if you're new here, make sure to subscribe, hit that bell so you never miss a video, and if you guys want to help support the channel, there are many ways to do so down in the description. But if you want to buy or pre-order any of the cards you see in today's video, or buy any trading card game cards for that matter, use my link in the description to TCG Player. It really does help out. That being said, let's get started. Greetings, Dragon Ball Super card game fans. Cross Spirits is now on sale, throwing the Unison Warrior series into overdrive, and what better place to start than by taking a look at the cards that got everyone's attention. SS4 Gogeta Thwarting the Dark Empire. This card is really insane, but in the current meta, like, it's still a really good card. Like Hachiyak decks and SS4 Bardock decks do revolve around this card, but it's actually really weak to blue because of God-Slaying Technique Trunks, and it's pretty weak to yellow as well because of like the infinite amount of rest mode effects that yellow can do to counterplay this. But still a really good card, tough for a lot of decks to deal with. So they say, that's right, SS4 Gogeta Xeno. Yes, Cross Spirits has many unique and interesting mechanics, but let's focus in on a card that well and truly deserves to be ranked among the best of the best. True, for that set, this was one of the best cards that came out. Without further ado, here's a deck featuring Gogeta Thwarting the Dark Empire. Let's take a look. So, Leader and Secret Rare, obviously Kai, really solid here. I think that Heroine's Lineage is also a good card in this deck if you're playing on like maybe not like a lower curve, but like a shorter game span. But with the way the format is now, super mid-rangey. Gogeta Xeno is, in terms of the modern context of the meta, it's a good deck. But it's really rough against like Gohan Icarus, for example, which is just like the definition of mid-range defense. Even Soul Striker, like the Galactic Buster Engine, and a lot of defense like that, I think is tough for Gogeta Xeno. But you have good matchups like Cell Surge, for example, some more like fragile control decks like that. Gogeta Xeno can do pretty well against. But they go with the Pycon Unison here, and yes, obviously it's very thematic with the deck. We're also seeing a lot of one drops, so 4 copies of Vegeta Catastrophic Premonition. I think he gains 10k when your opponent plays a battle card greater than their energy cost, which is not really too great. But 2 copies of the Goku Double Strike, I think he gains power when your opponent draws a card by a non-leader skill. So like, this card's actually always been interesting because if you attack with him, let's just say you buff him up with like Pycon and your leader to a 25k swing, if they super combo to try and stop him, it's actually super bad because then he just goes immediately to 35k and basically nullifies your super combo. So that's kind of an interesting little a game mechanic there. But besides that, a lot of Gogeta Xeno players have been going with the Mirror Unison from one of the expansion sets, and the card's really good. He gets played for free off of the Kai TP, which they're playing 4 of, because it is a 15k Unison with no specified cost, and that one says +1, draw a card, then warp a card from your hand. So you get to put your fusion materials right into the warp, which is really good. Yeah, you do lose out on the ability to buff your 1-drops, but your leader can still do that, and the deck is not exactly just like 1-drop spam. Even this build, especially where they're playing SS4 Gogeta Thwarting the Dark Empire, this build, in my opinion, for more competitive, should be less focused on like 1-drop spam, and it does lose to more things technically, like the Supreme Kai of Time counterplay. Just a note there. But going through the rest of the deck, Unrelenting Assault Trunks is actually super busted in this deck, because like you warp it with your leader skill, comes back to your hand, you can overwhelm it out to put your fusion materials into your warp, and then comes back to your hand after. That is another thing that gives this deck a really good matchup against hand control. The 3 Haru is like, I mean, it makes sense with the 1-drop spam, but like in a normal, more competitive build, you probably wouldn't be playing 1-drop spam. Then we have like the Gogeta Miraculous Might, Gogeta Fearless Fusion, which in my opinion is a 4 of. Like, being able to remove barrier battle cards is such a strong thing. And like, if you are playing more one-drop spam, like striving to be the best Goku could be a problem for you, so you might want to include that. But now we get to the main meat of the deck. So firstly, S3 Gogeta. Imagine being the game developers and having access to 4 copies of this card for free. It must be nice, but it is a really good reprint they're giving us in the Mythic Boosters, so I'm pretty excited about that. 4 copies of SS4 Goku as well to pick up Thwartings from the drop is really nice. Again, another really tough card to get. I don't know if this is getting a reprint in a recent set, but they are playing this deck basically to showcase SS4 Gogeta thwarting the Dark Empire. And this is interesting because, like, when this was all revealed, normally there's 2 leaders or archetypes per color per set, right? But in black for set 14 there really wasn't. We just got a bunch of these like SS4 Goku, Vegeta, and Gogeta cards, and there wasn't a leader to use with them necessarily. We would later find out that they were kind of meant for SS4 Bardock coming out of Anniversary Box, which made a lot of sense. But the stuff is obviously SS4 Goku, Vegeta, and Gogeta Xeno stuff, so it goes with Gogeta Xeno, the leader from, I don't know, maybe set 12, I want to say. But yeah, this is a pretty weird boss monster to play in this deck, and don't get me wrong, it could be decent in some matchups, like Hatchiak, for example. You'd probably want to side like 2 to 3 copies of SS4 Gogeta, but like, you're playing an aggressive deck, you're playing a lower to the ground deck. On 4 energy, you can play so many more battle cards than Gogeta, especially against blue and yellow, again, where Gogeta SS4 is really weak to certain counterplays. Like, maybe if you're playing against red and green, or even a black mirror, Gogeta can be a fine boss monster to play, but that's assuming the game goes that long and you don't have more that you can do with your energy to you know, whittle the opponent down and go for an aggressive push. But that's just my opinion in terms of like competitive Gogeta Xeno. This for a theme deck is definitely fine. Definitely going to take the locals, although you know, our more casual friends are not going to have 4 copies of S3 Gogeta Thwarting the Dark Empire because it's still really, really expensive. But again, nice reprint we're having in a few months. But anyways, I like to read what they say here. So this is an aggro mid-range deck loaded with Union Fusion skills and ways to use cards in your warp. Oh, that's another thing too. S4 Gogeta is not a Union Fusion, so you actually don't get to draw with your leader, which is kind of funny. But anyways, Gogeta Faithful Fusion Leader is the engine that powers the entire deck, sending 5 cards to your warp every turn and drawing you a card when you use a Union Fusion skill. Your frontline attackers have a special gimmick that allow you to use cards from your warp for Union Fusion, providing the deck with a distinctive new way to play powerful battle cards for cheap. And by combining the effects from cards like Pycon, Saver from Another Time, and Spring Kai of Time, Summon from Another Dimension, you unlock the potential to unleash explosive single turn plays. Exactly, but that's the whole reason why, like, you don't really want to play Thwarting the Dark Empire, because you can do so much with your energy in a deck like this instead of tapping 4 for this guy. But again, this card can obviously be very good for 4 in this deck depending on matchup, but normally probably gonna want to go other routes. But deck goals: SS4 Gogeta, a finisher with a devastating removal skill that sends 2 cards from your opponent's hand and 2 of their battle cards to the warp. That's 4 cards total. Yes, good math, Bandai. A massive swing that's sure to turn the game around. Terrifyingly, SS4 Gogeta can't be blocked or KO'd by skills. Truly a deck's ace in the hole. Yep. Early game, start by playing cards to the field early. Son Goku True Fighting Spirit is a good place to start while preparing your offense. That's true-ish, but like, what we've learned as far as like metagaming is that True Fighting Spirit is a really solid card for Black Sand decks, but you don't want to just like play it on turn 1 and have it sit there for your go-in turn. You really want to play it the turn you're gonna go in, because then it's much more difficult for your opponent to deal with it on that exact turn. And then if they're going to be like counterattacking or counterplaying, stuff like that, they're going to get punished because of Goku True Fighting Spirit. It does, you know, take away some energy you might need on your go-in turn, but again, another reason why you might not want to just tap out for SS4 Gogeta Thwarting the Dark Empire. But anyways, decks focused around attacking with battle cards tend to struggle against counter skills, but this card punishes your opponent every time they activate one. Playing Gogeta Fearless Fusion, which they only play 2 of, keep in mind, early will help you eliminate your opponent's key cards and throw them off their footing as the game proceeds, which is why I would play probably 3 to 4 copies. It's not a card you need to mulligan for every time, but keep it in mind and respond accordingly depending on the matchup. Mid game, we have all of our Gogetas, Pycon, and the Kai TP. Once you have cards in your warp, it's time to use Union Fusion to play cards while building advantage. SS3 Gogeta, Marvelous Might, and Gogeta Thwarting the Dark Empire can be played for a single energy, giving you easy access to high-powered attacks. SS3 Gogeta, Marvelous Might also synergizes well with Pycon, Saver from Another Time, and Spring Kai of Time TP, giving you access to cheap and easy sources of repeated attacks. Defensive cards, black leaders have access to classic counter cards like Goku making an entrance, which is good for fusion material, and Power Burst, which is also a good card. But honestly, in this meta, I think that Petrification kind of just outclasses Power Burst, even though Power Burst can potentially be used for free. But in this deck, Sparking 5 actually is a little bit tough to reach because you're sending most of your cards to the warp, not really your drop. So I'd probably just go Petrification, a straight up swap, or maybe like 2/2 Power Burst Petrification. Feel free to use it for non-defensive purposes. Power Burst is of course best used as a free counter, but since Gogeta Faithful Fusion's leader skill is constantly adding cards to warp, you'll have even more options when deciding which card to add to your hand with Power Burst. Synergistic picks: SS4 Vegeta, Feigned Greeting, another expensive TP card unfortunately. A Vegeta Xeno card that forces your opponent to discard when it enters play, easy to use for free, so considering it if you want more stability with Son Goku Xeno. Goku Time Patrol Elite, the Goku Xeno Super Combo card, worth considering if you want more stability with Vegeta Xeno. Nah, you just always play Vegeta Super Combo, it's just way better. And then SS4 Gogeta, Thwarting an Dark Empire. This card's already in the deck, but the SPR version of SS4 Gogeta is one of the coolest designs in Dragon Ball Super card game history. You have to see it to believe it. I definitely cannot argue with that. This card is easily one of the most beautiful cards they printed in the game. That's just not up for debate. And then we have, in closing, what do you think? UW5 has plenty of other great cards besides the one we discussed in this column. Check out the card list, build some decks of your own, experiment. I will say, with the most recent ban list, like, creativity is at an all-time high. I feel like every week there are new decks being discovered that are really, really strong in a certain niche spot of the meta, or even maybe more overarching, but we'll have to wait some more events to see what that's all about. But anyways, guys, hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time.